Well, now we are going to move on to our next speaker. Carlyn, can you say hello?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, as you are pulling up your slides, can you give us a self-introduction?
Sure. So my name, as you see, is Carlyn Lynch Schofield, and I have been in the engagement and development and culture space for about 10 years. And I absolutely love my work. And the longer I've done it, the more I've come to understand how different parts of life and my interest in just becoming a better, more well-rounded human being have really served me in the work that I do. So lately, what I've learned is a lot of even what we just heard, which was so fantastic, so much that we hear coming out of neuroscience and industry research in the fields of development and employee engagement and ancient spiritual wisdom and philosophy and modern thinkers. So many of these different fields are pointing to the same tools and insights that we can all use to become more successful, productive people, yes, but also more peaceful, in touch, and whole people. And that's what I'm really interested in. So I'm interested in how can we heal organizations at the micro level of the individual and the macro level of our teams, so that we can have people in these organizations who are really thriving, and in turn, our businesses are thriving. And then outside of our businesses, even larger than that, our communities, our families, and the world is changed because we're all approaching our work and our lives in different ways that are grounded in much more compassion and wisdom than have been the case in previous generations. So that's the work that I do. That's what I'm passionate about. And I am thrilled to be here.
We're excited you're with us today.
Thanks. Do we have my presentation, or can I think I'm controlling my slides.
Are you going to control them for your side? Yes.
Oh, you wanted me to share my screen on my side. Okay, one
Yes.
second. I thought it was going to pull up and then I clicked through them.
I know that I'm not, probably we can't figure that out, but I can't figure that out yet.
Okay, no worries. Let me figure this out for us.
Oh, you know what? I'll go ahead and pull up from my side.
Okay.
I'll pull up from my side and you just say next slide and I will.
Okay, perfect. All right, ladies. Thanks for bearing with me with technical difficulties. Okay. If we want to go to the first slide, that'd be fantastic. Okay. Thank you, Ginger. So in 2021, I had a new baby at home. It was the middle of the pandemic. I was in total isolation because I wanted to make sure we were keeping her safe. And also my team that I had worked on for years and years was disbanded. And so half of us went into one organization, half of us went into another. And the manager, who was a very good friend of mine, her job was eliminated. So I had a new manager, new team, new baby, new global pandemic raging all at once. And the thing that is not unique about my story is that all of us had some version of this sort of upheaval in those years. And we may still be experiencing this in small and large ways. And this got me thinking about the different ways we can approach these times when life seemingly turns upside down. I noticed that the wisest people who seem to fare the best during the pandemic approached this sort of upheaval with this lens of, what is this here to teach me? How can I take this experience and, instead of wishing it away, actually embrace it and see what I can learn from it? And also make sure that my life is not put on hold until this is over, but I find a way to live in the midst of this incredibly challenging time. And that's the perspective and the philosophy I wanted to embrace during that time, even though it was very difficult for lots of reasons. And there were times I was more and less successful at doing that. But when I was successful at doing it, I noticed that I was in a much better place mentally, emotionally. I was also showing up much more effectively for my team, at my job, and with my family. So I wanted to explore a little bit about what is it that helps people take these moments of uncertainty and disruption in our lives and turn them into opportunities for growth, for more joy, to become more healed and whole individuals. How do we do that? And if we can do that in our personal lives, how can we help our teams do that through times of economic uncertainty, when our market conditions are changing, when there's a disruptor in our industry? How can we see that not as threatening, but as something that we can actually embrace and that can push us to new levels of being and doing and providing services that we may not have ever been able to think were possible before? So I did what I do best and combined a bunch of different sources and different types of sources to come up with what I have decided to call 5 tenets of what to do to take these times and turn them into something really, really fruitful. And within each of these 5 tenets I'm going to share today, there are questions you can ask yourself. This is a very contemplative talk. And the reason it's contemplative is because I really believe that all of us have so much innate wisdom in ourselves. And sometimes the most important thing to understand is, what question should I be asking myself? And then really leaning into the answer that you have within to kind of figure out what it is that you need to do or how you can move forward in the best possible way. So the quote that you'll see on the slide here is from Winston Churchill, but I love it. And it's, never waste a good crisis. So in these times, how can we make sure we aren't wasting them, but we're actually using them? And if we go to the next slide, please. Like I said before, a lot of our struggles come from thinking that life should not have challenges, or when challenging things happen, or tragic things, or really upsetting things, or disorienting things, that those things should be wished away, or they should not be happening, or if they are happening, something is wrong. When in fact, life is full of disruption and challenge, and it's absolutely supposed to be. It's all part of our evolution as people, organizations, societies. Disruption is what shakes things up. It helps us actually gain clarity in a way that we might not have before, because we can just go along in the normal way of being. And if things are never challenged, even if that normal way of being doesn't ultimately serve us, or if we can get away with functioning, but at a very bare minimum, we will continue to do that until something pushes us outside of our comfort zone and requires us to change in some way. And so this is what we call kind of the cycle of disorientation and reorientation. And the goal is to see these times of disorientation when something happens, a big change, welcome or unwelcome, when it shakes us up. How can we use that to reorient ourselves? We don't want to go back to who we were before or how we were living before. We want to find higher ground. We want to get through whatever is happening and come out the other side a new person. This, again, I know we have lots of mothers on the phone, but we think about this in terms of the transition from maiden to mother, which you hear in ancient philosophies and ways of thinking, but we all experience it in the modern day, of course. We are who we are before we have our children, and then we have our children, and we're changed from them. And it's incredibly challenging. It's a welcome change, but an incredibly challenging and enlightening one. We learn so much about ourselves, and we aren't who we were before we had our children, but hopefully we're a richer, more well-rounded version of ourselves on the other side. And so we can get stuck in the disorientation, and we see this happen as well. So it's very easy to get stuck in just feeling lost. And so these tenets I'm going to describe for you today will help us get from lost to the higher ground that we want to reach. When we are in disorientation, we can see a lot of this play out at the macro level in society. When we were in the pandemic, for example, we saw that 3 times more people were describing their mental health as very poor than pre-pandemic. We also saw 75% of our employees in the US were reporting burnout. We saw a huge amount of women leaving the workforce. So there was obviously a lot of stress, a lot of unknowns, a lot of different balls in the air that we were all trying to manage. So how can we get out of that, come out of this pandemic and move forward in a way that's going to serve our families, our communities, our workers, and all of us, so that we can reimagine our workplaces and our lives and come up with something that feels better to all of us and looks a little different than what we had before. Next slide, please. So the first tenet, and these are all start with the letter C to help you remember them, but the first thing is care. So when you are in a time that's particularly difficult, when you're going through something that's emotional and challenging or draining or just knocks you off your feet, what you need is care. So you have to be able to give this to yourself. And some of us, this is the hardest thing for us to do, is care for ourselves. And these words on the screen here are the offerings that upheaval brings for us, that care, this tenet of care offers us these things that you see on the screen, if we are willing to accept them and practice them. Tara Brach is a Zen psychologist who I absolutely love. She has so much work around radical acceptance. If you're interested, I'd say check her out. But it all begins with accepting whatever it is that's happening to us and accepting what's happening within us as a result. So if you are going through something challenging, let's say at work, your team has just been blown up, or you're having a baby, you have postpartum anxiety. I don't know, maybe that was me. But if you are going through those things, the first thing we have to do is accept that they're happening. We can't push them away, wish them away. We have to just live in what is happening right now. Then what we want to do is not judge our circumstance or our reaction to those circumstances. We're human beings. We are all complex. We experience a wide range of emotions. Not all of them are traditionally considered positive, but they are all part of the human experience. And if we can accept that and meet them with compassion rather than judgment, then this opens us up to seeing and being able to embody more grace with ourselves, but also with other people, and starting to remove this wall between us and others. We saw this also in the pandemic. We saw something happen where all of us were going through the same sort of challenge and disorientation at the same time. And the actions that we all took affected everybody else. And that was as difficult and awful as it was in some senses. It also revealed a beautiful truth about how interconnected we are and how much the same we all are in so many ways. So many of the same struggles, fears, desires, those were all seen throughout the world. So we need to offer ourselves compassion, and then we need to nourish ourselves. When we're going through something that's a real struggle for us, we require nourishment. And I don't just mean food. I mean nourishment of the soul, the spirit, the mind. What are you consuming? What are you letting shape your thoughts and your feelings? So we also understand from neuroscience that our brains are wired in such a way where we are like Velcro to negative thoughts and experiences and Teflon to positive ones. This is a cruel trick of evolution, but actually I think it served us earlier in our history. It's something that I think we're gradually, through will and wisdom, we're changing and shifting the way our brains work. But back in the day, when we had to run from threats, when we lived more tribally, when we were trying to survive, and we had real threats to our survival, we had to use these evolutionary tools. So that looked like, if something bad happens, like if I see a tiger and I recognize those stripes, I know not to go near there again. Or if I put myself in a risky situation, if I touch a hot stove and I know it's hot, I know not to go near that stove again. It's all in an effort to keep us safe. But the ironic part is this wiring that has kept us safe for millennia is now to the point where we are perceiving threats all over the place that aren't real threats to our survival. And we're a lot more stressed out than we need to be. So one way to rewire our brains is to really savor positive experiences and emotions. And this can be so simple. This can be the look on your child's face the first time they have ice cream. But most of the time, we actually experience a lot of small positive joys and blessings throughout our lives and throughout our days, but we don't take the time to let them sink in. So we, right away, when a negative thing happens, it will stick with us and it'll shape our brains and shape our minds. But for us to be shaped and changed in positive ways, we need to let ourselves savor a moment for at least 15 seconds. So instead of just noticing the look on your child's face and smiling about it and then moving on, that's not going to imprint on your brain. Instead of doing that, you need to really sit with it. This is where the word contemplation comes in again, and why it's such a tool that's been used for years and years in spiritual and philosophical traditions, because when you really sit with something, you allow it to sink in. So we need to do that with the joyful and nourishing moments in our lives, and then give ourselves rest. Don't try to rush your healing. There's a song that I love, and that's a line in it, but it says you can't rush your healing. So just rest in it, accept it, give yourself the care that you need. A couple questions you can ask yourself when you are at the bottom of the ocean and you feel like you can't see the surface. Questions to ask yourself are, what am I resisting? What am I judging? And what do I need? Those 3 questions will really serve you. If you can ask yourself those things, then you'll be able to have a wise response. Next up, please. Clarity. I touched on this one already, but when our world is shaken up, let's take the pandemic again as an example. When our world is shaken up, we really get clear on what it is that drives us, that fuels us, nourishes us, and where we may have been out of balance. So we saw a ton of unsustainable ways of working and living before the pandemic, and we saw a lot of people make changes once the pandemic occurred in terms of how they were spending their time with their family, at work, when they were together, how was it quality time? My son said something so beautiful during this time. We were all at breakfast and we instituted something called Waffle Fridays. We were all eating our waffles and my son said, we have everything we need. And it was me and my husband, he was a toddler, my little baby girl. And I just thought, yeah, we do. We do have everything we need. And even though the world felt really scary and there were so many things outside of our control, we had each other. We had food to nourish our bodies. We had one another to nourish our spirits. And we had our house. We were safe. And I thought, we have what we need and we can get through this together. So clarity around, what do I value? What's important to me? When I know what I value and who I want to be, not just what I want to gain from the world, but what I want to give to the world, then you can kind of audit the behaviors in your life. So is the way that you are living aligning with what you say you value? And this can be a tough one. I think of something as simple as I say I value the environment, but there are days that I buy bottled water at work and I forget to take my water bottle from home. And I'm like, I have to make that more of a priority. And it's a small thing, but if I say I value this thing, how am I doing what I can do? Or bringing my own bags to the grocery store, these tiny little actions, but there are much bigger ones. Thinking about when we're challenged, when we're triggered, when do our values go out the window, and making sure that we are actually aligning our behaviors with what we value. And think about your life. If you were to ask people what they think you value, would it be the same response based on how you're showing up and what they see from you in the day-to-day? Limiting beliefs. So a lot of times these can be revealed to us. So what are we believing? What stories are we telling ourselves? And are they actually true? Are they holding us back? So some of the judge that Danae was saying earlier when she was talking about the judge and some of the accomplices to the judge in neuroscience, what are they telling you? What's the judge saying? What's your inner critic saying? And is it true? Or can you actually interrupt that and challenge it and come up with a new truth that serves you? Boundaries is a big one. I saw something come through the chat around saying no. I think oftentimes we take on a lot. We take on a lot of what's happening around us, and some of it is ours to own, and some of it is not. There's a tool in cognitive behavioral therapy called the you versus the universe exercise. I find this one to be really helpful when it comes to saying no or setting boundaries. So you do a column, 2 columns on a piece of paper, you and the universe on the other side. And the you column is everything that you can do about a situation, everything that's yours to own or that you want to do. And the universe is everything that is somebody else's or outside of your control. So this is a really helpful exercise if you're in the midst of a really challenging time or situation, and it feels like there's so much happening and so much going on, and you're worried about a lot of different things. This cognitive behavioral tool will help you sort out what you can focus on and where your energy and mental thought is actually well spent versus where it's rumination. The other thing is past impossibility. So it helps us understand what we need to let go of, what used to be the reality that is no longer our reality. What have we lost? What do we need to grieve? And what could be possible moving forward? Most of the time with change, there are 2 sides of it. There is something to be grieved, there is something to be lost, and there is something to be gained. And we need to acknowledge and accept both parts of that. There might be something that we really miss and something that was hard for us to let go of, but we have to. And then there might be, but there's always, I won't say might be, there's always something to look forward to as well. There is something that we can become. There is something that we can do that's going to inspire us and give us a vision for our future that excites us. Questions to ask with this sea of clarity, questions to ask yourself. Is the way I'm living aligned with my values? And be specific with specific behaviors. What harmful stories am I letting limit me? This comes back to the inner critic. So what am I listening to? What's the inner critic saying that I'm listening to, and what can I let go? What do I have to let go of? And what will I no longer accept or invest in? So what is something I might need to grieve? What do I need to let go of? And then what are some things I've been taking on or things I've been accepting that aren't serving me that I am no longer going to accept going forward? And the last most exciting question is, what's possible now? Next slide, please. Connection. This is a big one. Our pain is our power. I know many of us have heard that. It's also an avenue for connection. It connects all of us. We all experience the same human emotions. No one gets out of life unscathed. We all go through challenging times. And when we realize that, we start to remove this illusion of this self-constructed bubble of life where I'm my own little school project. I'm crafting this life. I'm separate from everybody else. Nobody understands what's going on inside of me, or I'm weird, or I'm better than, or I'm different from. We realize that, oh my gosh, I'm everything. I'm connected to everyone. I get angry. I get happy. They're angry and happy. I get confused. I have self-doubt. They have self-doubt. No matter what their job title is, no matter how happy they look on Instagram, all of these illusions kind of melt away when we are challenged, and when we meet our own humanity, when we see it within ourselves and others, we realize we're a lot more connected than we thought. And that is an amazing realization that challenging times and times of upheaval offer to us if we are willing to see it and accept it. So connection to yourself. This looks like accepting parts of yourself that you used to push away or reject. In psychology, you may hear the term shadow self. Oftentimes, when we go through really tough things, we see our shadow. We see our fear, our anger, our jealousy, our insecurity. And rather than reject those things and pretend they're not there, how can we accept them as part of who we are and heal them with all of the great, wonderful, rich compassion and acceptance that we're cultivating? So how can we, just by simply naming those things and meeting them with compassion, we can transform them within ourselves? Then, of course, community. Who would understand what you're going through? Who are the people in your life you can lean on? Or who are other folks you might need to reach out to? Maybe it's a really unique thing that you're going through, but there's always a community of people who you can find, especially now. You can always find people who can understand and relate to what you're going through. I also think it's really powerful to connect with nature. The reason being, we tend to spend a lot of time in our heads. And so when we're in our heads and we're cut off, and we can get obsessive, and we can also get really, really small in our thinking and the way that we're living. If you get out into nature, if you go into the woods, or you look out at the ocean and you feel your feet on the ground, and you're part of something so much bigger than yourself, and you see this same cycle of disorientation and reorientation and life and death, and you see it play out on this grander stage, you realize whatever personal drama you might be going through is so small. And it doesn't mean, it's also very meaningful, but it's part of this larger interconnected drama that's playing out in the world. And then you realize, like, it's all part of this grander thing. And maybe you can release a little bit of the control and the resistance that you've had to it, and just kind of relax into it and see what might be offered to you through it. And I say spirit here. This can mean different things for different people. But what is it that's larger than you? When I think of spirit, I just think of getting outside of the hamster wheel of our thoughts. So outside of that, in the last presentation, she used the word sage, sort of the higher centers of our brain. Whatever it is for you, if that's a spiritual belief that you have, if it's a connection that you feel to something larger than yourself, that really can help get you through, even if that's just to a higher self, higher parts of your own brain that you want to connect to help guide you through. What would the wisest version of you, the most loving version of you, what would that version say? And how can you connect in with that? And questions to ask yourself on the connection piece. What has this period of upheaval taught me about who I am? Who in my life lifts me up and comforts me? Those are people you want to be around. And what helps me feel the awe and peace that comes with being part of something bigger? So when you figure out what those things are, seek those out. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. This one's one of my favorites, creativity. So we all know the beautiful art that comes from times of intense sadness or struggle. We see this play out with musicians and artists all the time, but we are all artists. We are creating our life. It's the best work of art you'll ever do. So when something awful happens or something challenging happens, there's always, if we focus on that question of what's possible now, we can get really creative. And human beings are insanely creative. Just look at the world around you and everything we've built. We started out with nothing, rubbing rocks together and hunting and gathering, and look at what we've created. Look at the systems and the structures. We have continually evolved, and we are able to do that, and we are able to rise from incredibly challenging circumstances. So we all can tap into that force internally. We saw this play out during COVID as well. It totally changed the way we work. We did it overnight, which is incredible. We completely changed the way we work overnight because we were forced to. So when you think about what you're going through, what are you finding inspiring? What are you feeling? How can you get what you're feeling inside? How can you express it outside? This may look like journaling. This may look like talking to a friend. This might look like creating artwork. It also might look like taking the perspective you're gaining from whatever it is and applying it in your life, in your relationships, in your work. So everything serves everything else. The things that we go through in our lives, the things that we learn, whether it's in a book or by a mentor or just through something we're going through, can shape our perspective and how we approach other things in our life. So how are we integrating all of the things that we're learning into the way that we're living and working? How can we adapt? What could we do differently? This is where we can get really innovative. So it's exciting when you think about how can I be creative? What is this teaching me? What new ideas am I having? What new possibility might I be able to embrace and create something new? So when we think about questions to ask ourselves and to harness creativity, there is, what's a new or different way? What's a new or different way to do X? Ask yourself that. How can I express what's happening within me? What new insights can I bring to my work or my life? Next slide, please. This is our last slide. Courage. So obviously, this is a big one. This is something that we all have to gain when we overcome incredibly challenging obstacles and circumstances. And I think this is so profound, but we realize what we're capable of. If your limits are never tested, you actually have anxiety and fear because you don't know what you're capable of. So you kind of live in this state of fear because if something bad happens, you don't have the faith necessarily or the precedent to know that you can overcome it successfully. But once you start to overcome really hard things, then you can look back and say, I've done that. I can do this. And we do that more and more. The longer we live, the more things we face and overcome. If we're able to integrate the things that happen to us in healthy ways and accept the offerings that we are given from challenging times, if we can do that, then we do gain this incredible confidence. And that confidence conveys itself in courage. We are not afraid to take on challenges when new circumstances present themselves, when we have something difficult happen again, or someone does something to us that's hurtful. We can take that on in a completely different way, from a more confident, calm presence of mind than we had before. So that is an incredible gift. And then once we can do that, it's inspiring to others. And then when we can also take everything that we've learned and then we can share it. So we can help those who are now going through something similar that might not be where we are. Maybe we've gotten through it. We're on the other side. We've healed from it. Then we have wisdom to offer to someone who's in the thick of it, who's down at the bottom of the ocean floor. How can we toss them a life raft? That is so rewarding when you can take your pain and turn it into power to help someone else. So with this tenet, I have 3 questions you can ask yourself when you're at this, going through something. Number 1 being, what hard things have I overcome before? How have those hard things made me a wiser, stronger, more whole person? And how might this situation do the same? And lastly, how might this experience help me connect with and help others who might go through something similar? So with that, I will just leave you with the thought that I hope you can take these questions and these concepts. And if you're going through something challenging right now, or if you do in the future, answer these questions for yourself and then commit to one thing that you can do in each of these 5 C's, one thing you can do. And those will just give you some points of grounding when you're going through something that's really disruptive or something that just knocks the wind out of you. You can feel like you're in the middle of a dark sea and you're lost and you have no idea where to turn, what to do. My hope is that some of these concepts and some of these questions can ground you. They can give you little points, little things to grab for, so you can keep moving forward one step at a time and just make sure that you eventually move out of the darkness into a place of perspective and light and wisdom and more strength. So thank you for letting me share this with you. I hope it was helpful. And if there are questions, I'd love to take them.
Yes, Carlyn, I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions that have come in during your presentation. I'll start with this one from Cora that came in early. And Cora says, any advice on saying no? I'm stretched too thin. I'm the manager of my daughter's travel hockey team. And since it's an expensive sport, no one wants to volunteer.
Okay. I would say don't raise your hand for something unless you really want to take it on. I know we can totally get into this place where we want to be very, very helpful. It's also okay to take a step back. I think sometimes we can get into a role and maybe if other folks aren't doing what they committed to, I think you have to just say, I can't take this on. Like, rather than asking, you're kind of saying it's now a need because I'm not able to do it all. So it's not going to happen if somebody else doesn't step up. I think people will let you take on a lot. If you're willing to do it, they'll let you. So I think at some point you have to just say, I can't, it's not, I'm sorry, but it's not going to happen unless somebody steps up and takes on X, Y, or Z. That would be my advice.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you. And I think let this be our final question before we move on to our panel. And Kayla says, how do you teach some of these C's within your team? Or do you?
Yeah, so I actually developed this talk for you guys. And I haven't used it with my team yet, to be completely honest, but I probably will. I'd love your feedback. I'm just kind of seeing what resonates and if it's something that people find benefit in. So would love your thoughts, but I probably will share this with my team, and I'm excited to see what they take away from it and what thoughts they might have to share with me.
Well, thank you so much for your time. So before we move on to our panel, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for our viewers today?
I think I probably said enough words, but I just appreciate the time, and I am so grateful for opportunities like this to hopefully do some good and help in the ways that I can and share the things I'm learning. And so thank you for inviting me. I hope that this was helpful for some. If you all would like to connect with me or check out my work, I do have a website. It's thewonderofwork.com. I offer keynote talks and also workshops for organizations and individuals who are interested in this type of work. So if you'd like to check out my website, please do, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a conversation or just get to know each other.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.